Today, I'm going to be talking with a Messianic Jew. I'm super excited about that. Please join me in welcoming from truefreethinker.com, Ken Ammi. Ken, thanks so much for joining me today, man. How are you?
Great, and thank you for having me. It's an honor and a pleasure.
So you were searching around for skeptics and non-believers and people to have conversations with, and somehow you landed on me. I apologize in advance, but thanks for reaching out. And
Well, I apologize if I landed on you. I don't know.
I mean, look, people have done much worse than landed on me, so it's not that big of a deal. Before we get into your website and a recent talk you gave, at least I think it's recent, about the Bible being taught in our education, which you believe should be happening, I think. I can't wait to get into that conversation. But just break down what it means to be a Messianic Jew, because people think Messiah, they think Jesus, they think Jew, they think Old Testament, not really accepting the Messiah. So what does it mean to be a Messianic Jew?
Yeah, Messianic Jew. Yeah, it's a little messy. I mean,
he's got jokes.
A rim shot sound
effect. Yeah, I need to go put that in post. Yeah.
But I mean, I guess we could talk about that stuff. Frankly, I'm more focused on trying to become a comedian.
Yeah,
because
clearly.
they say find your niche and fill it, right?
Yeah, clearly.
So I think I found my niche as a comedian.
Takes a little more than that, but yeah, okay. Yeah, we could definitely work on getting you there. First, let's tell us what a Messianic Jew is.
Come on, I'm setting up for a punchline. Come on now.
Yeah, I know. I could tell, and I was trying to stop it from happening.
So then the question is, what's the niche? Well, I want to be a comedian that only tells inside jokes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, I think we call that guy annoying.
Painful.
I think we call that guy annoying. We already have a title. That's all right. It's going to be a tough crowd. Hold on. I'll give you one of these.
I thought that was pure gold. All right. I'm going to give up on trying to become a comedian. Let's talk about
great idea. So what is a Messianic Jew? Why not? Like, what's the, like, when you say, is it, would you say it's the same as being Christian? Like, what would differentiate someone who's a Christian from being a Messianic Jew?
In my mind, the terms, okay, so labels are just labels, right? So for example, the first followers of Jesus were called followers of the way. Later on, they started being called Christians, and initially it was a term of derision. Oh, you little Christs, you Christians, and then that term kind of stuck. So saying Messianic Jew, I also wouldn't mind just calling myself a Jewish Christian or just a Christian. But Messianic Jews, just because people tend to find it interesting that what it means is I'm born Jew, I was born a Jew, and I'll die a Jew. And yet I came to accept that Jesus is the Messiah, the Lord God and Savior, God in the flesh. And so that's what makes me Messianic. In a manner of speaking. Okay, so again, this is just the name game, right? I mean, in a manner of speaking, all Jews are Messianic because all of Jews would expect a Messiah. And I'm just identifying that I believe he's already come in the person of Jesus.
Okay, so it's more of a tie of the ethnic connotation with Jew, right? That you want to maintain that based on your heritage and the family you were born in, but still be able to acknowledge that you believe in Jesus.
Right, and in essence, being a Messianic Jew is the original Christians. They were all Jews initially, all the apostles and then all the disciples. And then eventually Goyim started coming in, the Gentiles, the people of the nations started becoming believers in Jesus as well. So this is really going back to the beginning. So for instance, when my dad asked me, "What, are you going to convert now?" I'm totally joking, by the way. He actually asked me, "¿Qué te vas a convertir?" And I just explained to him, well, look, I'm not converting to anything. I'm a Jew who believes that the Jewish Messiah has come in the person of the Jewish man Jesus, as prophesied in the Jewish Old Testament, the Tanakh. So there's nothing for me to convert to. I'm just accepting a fact.
So why do you think most Jews do not accept that?
Well, that's a very anthropological and sociological and theological question. There's so many layers to it, but part of it may be that when a person typically refers to Judaism, they don't realize that they're really referring to rabbinic Judaism. Okay, now this is Judaism under the auspices of the rabbinate, the system of rabbis. Just like in Catholicism, you have the bishopric, right? The system of bishops. In Islam, you have the imamate, right? The system of imams. And so if you look at the Tanakh, the Old Testament, you don't find rabbis in there at all, nor do you find what Rabbinic Judaism's main claim to fame is that they possess not only the written Torah, the written law, but also an oral Torah, an oral law, as well as a set of mystical teachings that were also passed down orally and only eventually written down. And so in a way, Rabbinic Judaism is very much of its own animal. So, for example, they're not sacrificing animals at a temple with a priesthood. They don't have that anymore. And that's actually how Rabbinic Judaism started. It was when our people were dispersed out of our land twice. And so if you think to yourself, well, I'm a Jew, that means I have to interact with my priesthood and sacrifice animals at the temple. Well, all of a sudden, you literally cannot do that. And so then my people started thinking, well, how can we be Jews still and not be able to do those things? And that's how the concept of synagogues started, and that's how the concept of the rabbinate started, and all these great houses of study, the yeshivas, and it kind of turned into a very different thing just to figure out how can we still be Jews without some of the fundamental features that we thought made a Jew a Jew.
Mm-hmm. What is it about the story of Jesus that is believable to you? Because you know I'm a non-believer, so this isn't shocking to you, but I've just always found the story of Jesus to be just so obviously like the telling of a story or a legend that sort of changes from Matthew to Mark to Luke to John. There's like this weird difference between the character Jesus and even some of the contradictions or conflicts that are in the opposite. It almost seems like these authors are competing with one another. So what is it about the story of Jesus that is convincing to you?
Oh boy, you're making that difficult for me to answer because all your hidden assumptions are just jumping out all over me. So I'm kind of instantly interested in those, I must say.
Well, start with your belief as opposed to my challenges, and I promise you I will definitely get to those. But what is it about the story, just on your own, as you were raised Jewish, what is it about the story, or what was it about the story of Jesus that seemed believable to you, and you started to go, yeah, this seems like this is the Messiah. This is the coming of God incarnate.
So again, and of course you're aware of this, that's a very, very complicated question. And the answer would take me 27 years to tell, because that's when I came to accept Jesus. Coming from a background of not knowing any Christians whatsoever until I was about 21, it's the first time I can consciously say, oh, okay, I'm looking at a human being who's a Christian. I actually know that, and they're right here in front of my face. Although years later, I remembered that one of my Hebrew teachers was actually something called the Baptist and something called the minister, which at the time I had no idea what that meant, but I knew it meant he was a goy, right? I knew it meant he was a Gentile. He was a non-Jew, but
right.
That was years later. So I not only came to Jesus kicking and screaming, like literally, not literally, but if you would have told me even a year before that I was going to become a Christian, Christian, I would have thought, okay, let's have you committed to a nice padded room with a straitjacket because you're absolutely insane and there's just no two ways about it. That's just never going to happen. And I grew up thinking that Christians were my enemies, by the way.
Yeah.
And now I always follow that up by saying, don't ask me why I thought that, because honestly, I have no idea. I can't ever remember anybody telling me anything like that, but it's just that's how I felt growing up. And compound that with that, well, what did I know about Christianity since I didn't know any Christians? Well, I knew what I got from pop culture. So it was like 100% negative propaganda, right? So that kind of made it easy to just dismiss Christians and Christianity and their claims. So when I first encountered them, I thought these people are literally insane. I mean, they're just goodbye. You're going to tell me that you are going to explain the Tanakh, the Old Testament, to me? No, you have no idea what you're talking about. And so I did go through the traditional stages of shock, from denial to anger to just eventual acceptance, like eventual.
Well, you were what were you taught about Jesus as a child in a Jewish household?
Zippity doo dah, nothing. I'd never even heard his name.
Wow.
In fact, even when, well, I wasn't born in the U.S. Okay, so I was in a whole different kind of cultural setting. But so, for instance, even for Christmas, I'm aware that we received gifts just because it was a cultural thing to do. But we called it La Noche de los Reyes Magos, right? The night of the kingly magi. But I had no idea what that meant. It meant literally nothing to me, nor was it explained to me. It was just a time when I got gifts. Okay. Again, because it was just part of the culture. So no, nothing, not a single word. And then when I was attending school in Israel, I remember being told by the teacher that everything Jesus taught was Jewish except for turn the other cheek, period. That was the end of the story and nothing more about it. And that's not even true, by the way. It's not even accurate. But that's the one sentence that I got when I was out there. So I came from about as far removed from it as you could possibly imagine. And I don't like contextually talking about my parents, only because I have a very strong sense of filial piety. Okay. But I'll just say that they think I'm like absolutely insane that I have
so I want to point something out here. So I want to point something out here. So it's really interesting to me. My question to you was, what is it about Jesus that is believable? And you responded, and this is important though, you responded with, I didn't know any Christians, and then I met Christians, and then you started telling me about people who believed. And that tends to be a pattern, I think, that a lot of people who come to Christianity a little bit later in life, or at least to the story of Jesus later in life, it tends to start with, there were these people that I really respected who also believed this thing. Does that hold any weight with you? Did it matter to you that people that you liked or admired also believed in Jesus? Was that perhaps a catalyst for you to start believing that maybe it's possible that this guy really rose from the dead, even though, physically we don't believe that to be possible?
Well, not really. I mean, partly because it wasn't people plural. It was literally one single person. And then what happened is that I literally just happened upon a Christian radio station because I like listening to AM talk. And so, anybody who's talking, I want to check out what they're saying. And I'm like, oh, these are those Christian people. Let's see what they have to say. And so the one person I knew was sort of the group oddball because where I was living in the university area. So you're talking about all kinds of leftism and whatever you want to call it. Let's say far away from anything that's traditional or conservative, put it that way.
Right.
And so she was the oddball that she even knew people like us that were partying all the time and carrying on and you name it. And to the point that eventually one of our friends ended up telling her, well, we used to always try to get you to sin, because you're the oddball. So we would try to encourage you to do the stuff we were doing. And so it was just from her, it's not as if I got the gospel, as they say, but just a buddy and a friend and among the group. But it was from listening to the radio that I started just actually trying to engage on various levels, like intellectually. What are these people actually saying? Because in all my years of pretending that I was so open-minded, and I did a stint of interest in the New Age movement, and like a stint of interest in everything dark and black, and death metal and occult and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And then kind of a stint in the reggae scene.
So Ken, I want to try one more time, like really directly, man. Like really directly here. Help me out here. And this is, I want to have a really direct conversation with you. And people don't want to hear these side off stories about all these other things that like they tune in for a very specific conversation.
Yeah.
What is it about this particular Jew who died and then came back to life and then literally floated to heaven that made you say, yeah, that sounds reasonable?
Yeah, I'll just remind you, that's where we started, but then you asked me about the people, so that's why I talked about them. So about Jesus himself, well, part of it is this concept of that, well, if there is no God, or if God is not a personal being, then evil, pain, and suffering are just for nothing. And I'm going to put a qualified nothing there. Maybe we can loop back to that. Okay. Qualified nothing. And it's kind of just a stoic, oh, well, too bad. That's reality. Swallow it down and keep going. But then I thought, well, I wonder if then all the suffering my people have been through the millennia was literally just for nothing, or whether there's an ultimate redeemer. And then the ultimate redeemer will make sense of it all and be able to redeem it all and make it all mean something in some way. And that's kind of what started captivating my thought.
Okay, fair enough. But honestly, that sounds like a reason for you to hope it's true, so that the suffering won't be for nothing. But that's not evidence that it is, right? I could hope a lot of things are true that aren't true. And if you were to say, hey, why do you believe that your door is impenetrable from every burglar? And I could just say, because I really don't want to go to sleep at night thinking someone could kick my door in. That's just me not wanting it to be capable of being kicked in. That doesn't mean that my door is any stronger than anyone else's, right? So you hoping that there's a reason to explain the suffering has zero to do with evidence of it actually being true.
Farmers Policy Perks are that little extra something you can get when you're a Farmers customer. So to tell you about them, we're adding a little extra something to this ad: smooth saxophone riffs. When you have a Farmers home policy with guaranteed replacement cost, if your home gets destroyed, we'll pay to rebuild it regardless of your limits. Dig it. It's a whole lot of something. Get a quote at farmers.com.
We are farmers. Bum, 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 bum.
Optional coverage not available in every state. Only available with select farmers-branded policies. Subject to terms and conditions. Underwritten by Farmers Truck or Fire Insurance Exchanges or affiliate.
Bundle multiple policies for savings of up to 45% on your Farmers auto insurance. It's like a buffet without the regret. Get a quote at farmers.com.
We are farmers. Bum, 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 bum.
Not available in every state. Only available with select farmers-branded policies. Subject to terms and conditions. Underwritten by Farmers Truck or Fire Insurance Exchanges. Farmers New World Life Insurance Company or affiliate.
Okay, so let me just keep going down this line a little bit, but in the meantime, I'm going to remind you that your hidden assumptions are just pelting me all over the place, so that you're essentially not even asking me any real questions, but I'm going to just keep going, and then maybe we can loop back to that. So my point was that in the meantime, I was listening to Christians sort of give their explanation for why they believed what they believed. And one thing that surprised me is, again, so learning about Christianity through pop culture, I thought it was churchianity, as some call it, where you go through a bunch of rituals and there's there's no education, and then you're done. But these guys would talk for an hour, and then I ended up figuring out, wait a minute, these are actually their church services. These are actually their Sunday sermons, and they're extremely informative. So I'm hearing about the history and the archaeology and the linguistics and the prophecy and one thing after another, and you name it. There's so much backing up what they were saying that's why I'm emphasizing that this is very complicated and multifaceted.
Hold on. Let's talk about.
It wasn't just intellectual or logical. It wasn't just this or that. It was like a package deal.
You said there's so much backing up what they're saying. You made a couple of mentions about hidden assumptions. I feel like there are several packed in there. So first, I want you to tell me what you believe my hidden assumptions to be, and then we'll get to some questions that you may like a little more. Because I still never got a real solid answer as to why the resurrection of Jesus is believable. And when I ask you that, you tell me I have all these hidden assumptions. I don't know what that means. So you tell me what you think my hidden assumptions are. We can address those, and then I'll try to better reword the question in a way that you can answer it.
Right.
So what are my hidden assumptions?
You were asking me about Jesus himself, and now you're asking about his resurrection. So that's sort of a down the line kind of issue. But for example,
no, Ken, from the very beginning, I've asked you why you believed the story of Jesus and his resurrection, because we do not believe that to be physically possible. So what I've always been able to connect with traditional or Orthodox Jews on is that they do not believe that anyone has died and come back to life. And so
what?
A Messiah.
Now that's what's hard to believe.
No, a Messiah.
I couldn't even
they do not believe that a Messiah
Jew that would believe something like that.
No, they do not. I mean, they believe some of the Old Testament, I guess, mysticism we could get into, but I'm saying they do not believe there has been a returning of God incarnate, right? But you do. And so
that's a separate issue then. Yeah.
Right. That's what I meant. So my original question is, why do you believe it? And your response had to do with there's a good Christian that I met, and that my hidden assumptions are hitting you all over the face. So it kind of sounds like you're just avoiding the question. So I'm just going to let you tell me what my assumptions are, because I don't know what assumptions I could have. It's pretty clear, I think, that if you believe the story of Jesus and you believe he is the Messiah, you believe he died and came back to life and then ascended up into the heavens. Am I correct?
Yes. So let's pause right there for a second.
Okay.
So yes. And my question would be, so what?
Well, the reason I ask is because that's literally impossible.
Okay. So what does it matter that it's literally impossible?
Well, it matters because it can't happen.
Okay. So what does it matter that it can't happen?
That means it didn't happen.
Okay, I'm sorry to keep doing this, but what does it matter that it didn't happen and I actually believe that it did? What does that matter?
Well, that means you're basing your life on something that is false.
Okay, and how is that even relevant on atheism?
Well, because you're giving a talk saying that we should teach this to our children in a public education system.
Actually, that's a... if you want to take a sideline to that for a moment, do you want to do that?
No. Because
Okay.
I have a note. I'm not going to forget that one. That's the one main thing I wrote down. But what I'm getting at is you vote. Let me explain. Let me explain why I care that you believe true things. Like, why does it affect me? We share a society, right? We share a society. You very likely have the ability to vote. Your behaviors and decisions have an effect on me because we share a society. So my listeners have heard me say this 100 times. Maybe you're new to the show, so I'll say it for you. If you let Jesus take the wheel on the freeway, we're both screwed. So your behavior, your beliefs inform your behaviors. Your behaviors affect me because we share a world. So I do care that you believe true things. So if you were basing your life on something like a dead person coming back to life and then floating up to the sky, it concerns me, and I want to know why. And that's why I started this podcast. You reached out to me. You wanted to see what the conversation was going to go. So here we are having the discussion. So that's why it matters that it's impossible. That's why it matters that it can't happen. That's why it matters that it didn't happen.
Well,
and hopefully
that's different now. You're saying two different things. You're saying it matters, but before you were saying I care, and you said it affects me, which was more accurate, because that was what's in keeping with your worldview, is that it's that you care and that it affects you, so it's purely subjective.
No. It matters
it's a personal.
It matters to more than just me.
Of yours.
No. It matters to more than just me. This isn't about David C. Smalley. Well, this is about it mattering to,
of course,
to billions of billions of Muslims on the planet. It matters to several Native Americans. It matters to several Native Americans. You're gonna have to let me, Ken. You're gonna have to let me finish talking. Ken, you're gonna have to let me finish my point. Ken,
I'm sorry. We're talking. Yeah.
We can't talk at the same time. So, and there's gonna be a little bit of a delay on Skype. So just so you know, when I'm talking and you start to talk, they're probably not going to hear you because I'm the main system here. Okay. So it's just gonna make it. It's just gonna make it seem like you didn't hear me. So, give me the floor here. So there are billions of Muslims who would care. There are millions of kids even who are secular, who do not believe, who are in public school systems where teachers are Catholic, teachers are Christian, teachers are Jewish, and they are influencing those children with certain beliefs. There are parents who are treating their kids differently based on them being gay or part of the LGBTQIA community. The main belief in the United States is shared with you, and that has a massive effect on our laws, on the times at which they sell alcohol, on all sorts of daycare facilities and treatment centers and medical facilities. It's a huge influence in our lives. So when I find someone who is willing to talk about their beliefs, I'm going to ask why you think it's true. Why is this believable to you? And that's the whole purpose of the podcast, is to be questioned about those things.
So I would say that I'm not having a conversation with millions of Muslims and millions of kids. So I have to focus on the individual who is you, who is an atheist, and who's telling me I care, it affects me subjectively. And you have to say that because you're an atheist. So you can't tell me that there's a universal imperative to adhere to truth, because you don't have that within your system. You only have it within your personal preferences that are based on hidden assumptions.
That doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know how. I don't know how you can claim to have some sort of universal truth, because your truth is dependent upon your God changing his mind. If your God changes his mind and decides that black is yellow tomorrow, it changes. So you don't have any objective truth either. Your truth is subjective to the very will of the God that you believe in.
Well, I would point out that's a too quote, but that doesn't really matter on atheism. So what I would say is, if you are correct, then you're right. We're all lost in a sea of pure subjectivism, and then it doesn't matter anyway. Well, except that you have personal preferences based on hidden assumptions.
Look, I don't think everything is purely subjective. I asked a basic question of why it is believable that a dead Jew came back to life and floated to the sky. That's what I wanted. I want to know why you believe that. I want to know what is it about that story that makes you believe it actually happened?
Well, so let me just get a little bit more meta level. So would you say that you believe in something to the effect of that nothing accidentally caused nothing to explode for no reason and made everything without meaning? Is that just
so you're just not going to answer my question?
Oh, no, I'm still trying to understand the perspective that you're coming from, because I think what's happening is that you're saying jump and you want me to say how high, but I'm just, when you say jump, I'm asking why. And that's why I'm waiting for that reply.
Well, here's what's happening,
just
though,
because
Ken.
you say so.
No. Absolutely not. I never want anyone to feel like that on the show. What's happening here is I went through a couple of core beliefs with you. Do you believe Jesus died? You said yes. Do you believe Jesus rose from the dead? You said yes. Do you believe Jesus ascended or floated into the heavens? You said yes. And I said, what about that story is believable? And rather than giving me something that logically steps to that answer, you just attack my worldview, which actually you have a lot of hidden assumptions about that aren't quite true. But you're like, oh, so you just think this all came from nothing. That's not what we're talking about. I could be, if I were a Muslim, I would believe 80% of what you believe, and I would tell you I don't believe the story of Jesus. So I'm asking why you believe the story of Jesus. You then flipping it and saying, oh, you believe in nothing, which isn't even really the case. We could get into my worldview if you want a little bit later. My question was to you, what is believable about the story of Jesus dying, coming back to life, and floating to heaven? You attacking my worldview is going to get us nowhere. I want to know what evidence you have for the reason that you believe. And in fact, that's what 1 Peter 3:15 says for you to do, is to always be prepared to offer reasons for the hope that you have, but do so with gentleness and respect. In no way does that mean, oh, just tell the atheist he believes in a bunch of nothing accidents. That's not evidence or hope for the reasons that you believe. I want to know why you believe, Ken, not why you think I'm wrong. Why do you believe Jesus rose from the dead and floated to heaven?
Let's see, there is an underlying fundamental issue that we really shouldn't just ignore and go on with the conversation as if we can begin with faulty premises and get on with a conclusion, because you've referred to logic, you've referred to evidence, you've referred to contradictions, you've referred to what's believable, and you've referred to that I'm saying things about your worldview that aren't quite true. And what I'm saying is none of those things are relevant on your worldview. They're just your subjective personal preferences based on hidden assumptions.
So you're just not going to answer the question?
Well, what I'm doing is seeing if you have a premise upon which to ask your questions that would then lead me to be able to respond to them and interact.
So is your position that an atheist doesn't even have a basis by which to ask a question because you believe that we think everything is just a nothingness accident, so all of our questions are automatically invalid?
Well, maybe I should just ask you then, instead of having me tell you, is it or is it not your view that, for example, truth is accidental, as is our ability to discern it? There's no universal imperative to adhere to it, nor to demand that other people adhere to it.
Yeah, you're doing that thing again where you're just avoiding the question of providing evidence for your worldview. And the question,
okay,
the very direct question I asked you, and you're just trying to figure out that I believe in nothing, which honestly, we can talk about my belief in a moment. I can tell you what I think.
But now.
No, not yet, because I've asked you the same question multiple times and you're just avoiding it. So why can't you answer the question of why you believe a dead Jew came back to life and floated? Why is that difficult? If you believe it and it's the cornerstone of your faith, why can't you just tell me why you believe it happened?
Okay. I'm kind of getting the sense we're feeling the same thing about each other, as if we're both playing diversionary tactics. So, for example, when you're asking me for evidence right now, right? Evidence that happened.
Actually, I haven't even gotten to the evidence part yet, because
but you've asked for evidence numerous times already.
Well, no. Look, I typically how this goes is I say, "Why do you believe?" and I get an answer, and then I say, tell me, let's go through the evidence of what supports that belief. Tell me why you believe that source and why you believe this source. And let's get into the scriptures. And do you trust the scriptures? And how do you feel about this Bible verse and this Bible verse? And that's how the conversation moves forward. You're not even answering the first step of the question. You're answering my question by asking an accusatory question about my belief and saying that I don't even have a basis to ask the valid question. So you're just completely avoiding it. And that's not what people tune into the show to hear, is avoidance. They want to know your answer for the reason that you believe. And in fact, when Paul wrote that in 1 Peter 3:15, it's pretty clear that's what he wanted, is for you to give reasons for the hope that you have, not attack someone else's belief. So again, I will answer questions about atheism. I've had entire episodes, Ken. This is episode like 550 something of this podcast. I've been doing this for 11 years. I've done plenty of shows where I bring a Christian on and I say, I'm in the hot seat. Ask me anything you want about atheism, about humanism. I'll answer the question to the best of my ability. Let's go. Grill me all you want. What you're doing is I asked you a question about your belief, and your answer to that is just attacking my belief. That doesn't make any sense. So no, we're not both doing the same thing. I asked you a question first, and you're avoiding it.
Well, I think you hit upon something very important, which is that you're telling me the way this usually works. And I understand that I'm taking you outside your comfort zone and trying to get you to interact in a way that you're not accustomed to. I understand that.
Ken. No,
so,
Ken.
So that's why I was saying.
No, Ken. Let me be clear about something. Let me be very clear about something. I'm not outside of my comfort zone to answer questions about atheism. I literally just explained that I've answered questions about atheism for years. That's not outside my comfort zone. I'm playing two roles right now. I'm the atheist on this show, and I can provide answers for that worldview. But I'm also the host creating content that people want to listen to. And that, I know the formula. I know that they don't want to hear 45 minutes of avoiding and sidestepping and jello and just avoiding the topic and then attacking someone instead of, they're just going to roll their eyes and go, oh my God, this guy was frustrating. He wouldn't even answer the question. I've dealt with years of comments like that. Okay. So I'm a producer of content, and I'm also the atheist on this show. So you're not taking me outside of my comfort zone as the atheist on this show, but you are making it very difficult to produce content that people will want to listen to, because you're just not answering the question. And if you're not going to answer the question, there's no point in continuing the conversation, because nobody's going to listen to this. So I'm not outside of my comfort zone. I've said multiple times I will answer questions about atheism. But if you're just going to sidestep all of my questions about your belief into attacking atheists for not being, in some sort of accidental nothingness, whatever, there's no point, Ken. This is not a conversation about beliefs. It's just an attack and an ad hominem approach to someone's worldview and avoiding answering questions. So please understand that I'm also trying to produce content here that people are going to want to follow along with. And it doesn't make sense for you to avoid the questions I'm asking you if we're making content for people to hear a discussion.
I appreciate you having me on, and I'm trying to honor you as the host of the show. So let me answer your question directly. I'll just make a little statement, okay? Just a little one. Just to make you think about how when you begin with a conclusion, then it's just natural to attack the premises of a syllogism. So this isn't unusual. It's just good old-fashioned logical conversation. So now let me jump to, well, why is it that I believe that Jesus died and then resurrected back to life and ascended to heaven? Now, what if I reply to you by saying, gee, I don't know, it kind of sounds nice to me, so I'm going with it?
Then I would say, based on what basis do you hold that belief? Because now you're just saying that you like it. You're not saying you affirm it. So what basis led you to that belief other than just liking it?
Yeah, but if I say, gosh, I don't know, my basis is just that, like I said already, it kind of sounds nice. So I thought that I would actually believe it, accept it, adhere to it, promulgate it. And it's just a personal preference of mine.
Okay, so then I would ask, do you think something sounding nice is intellectual justification to believe it actually happened?
Well, but you see how this is spinning us in circles?
No, only because you're not answering me. Because you know the answer to that, Ken. You know the answer is no. Something sounding nice is not justification for believing it actually happened.
On what? On your worldview?
In reality, Ken, something just sounding nice is not justification to believe it's true.
But you see the issue. Okay, we're going in circles again, because now you're holding to adherence to reality, and so I want to ask why.
What?
Right. You said in reality that doesn't hold. So then your hidden assumption is that adhering to reality is some sort of universal imperative, and I'm curious as to why you think that.
Are you now advocating for us not adhering to reality? Is that where we are in this conversation?
No, I'm asking you why you are asking me to adhere to reality as some sort of universal
Jesus
imperative
Christ.
on
I
your
can't even
worldview.
believe you're saying that. You're asking me to defend. Hold on. You're asking me to defend why I think adhering to reality is the intellectually honest thing to do. Have I reached that point in my career? Well, I'm now having to defend basic reality. This is asinine, Ken.
Well, what is reality on your worldview?
What is reality? What are you talking
on your
about?
Worldview.
What is reality? Is that your
on
question
your
to me?
worldview.
That which can be empirically proven, I guess, for a lack of longer definition. Ken, I could give I could give you 40 examples in a row. I won't. I could give you 40 examples in a row of things I would like to be true, but I have no basis or justifiable reason to believe them. It sounds nice for me to be a millionaire. I'm not.
With Farmers, you could get savings just for becoming a customer. It's a little extra something. So to tell you about it, we're adding a little extra something to this ad. Precious baby giggles. When you switch to Farmers, you could save an average of $437 on your home insurance. And that's a whole lot of something, baby. Aw, get a quote at farmers.com.
We are farmers. Bum, 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 bum.
Based on average nationwide annual savings survey data July 2020 to 21, underwritten by Farmers Trucker Fire Insurance Exchanges or affiliate. Products not available in every state.
Bundle your home and auto with Farmers and you could save up to 20%. 1 + 1 = 20. It's bundle math. Get a quote at farmers.com.
We are farmers. Bum, 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 bum.
Not available in every state. Only available with select Farmers branded policies subject to terms and conditions underwritten by Farmers Trucker Fire Insurance Exchanges or affiliate.
There's no justification, no qualified intellectual justification for me to believe I am a millionaire when I don't have the evidence to support it. But it feels nice to think about it. That is just based on the facts of reality alone and the reality that we both live, Ken. In this world where we both experience real life and physics and interactions with reality on a daily basis. There is nothing about something just feeling good that justifies it as a belief to actually be true.
See, I hope you'll be empathetic to why now. I hope you understand why I was trying to begin with those meta level issues that were hidden assumptions, because when you as an atheist refer to reality, you're referring to something that came about accidentally, right?
I don't know that I would call it an accident. And so
that means the same thing. It wasn't
no,
designed, it wasn't created, it wasn't caused, it wasn't the end goal of design. It just happens to have happened the way it happened, right?
Okay, so here we are. Once again, you're jumping the gun to try to talk about the atheist worldview, which I will address if we make it there. But you're just completely avoiding my question. You didn't tell me that. Is that your answer for believing, Ken, that it just kind of sounds nice?
Well, the question was, what if I said that? And what we're ending up finding out is that if I just said that, it doesn't really matter on your worldview because reality is accidental. So you can't claim that it's a universal imperative to adhere to reality.
Okay, well, clearly you're not listening because I just said, Ken, that I wouldn't call it an accident. And then you tell me that my worldview is that it's an accident. So how do you think we're going to have a productive conversation when you're rewording my belief in a way that I would never state it?
I said, go ahead and pick a different word. That means the same thing. I mean, I don't mind what word we use. Use X if we want to. But the point isn't the label I put on it. The point is the way I explained what I meant was that on your view, reality is not created. It's not designed. It's not the end result of a goal. It wasn't purposeful. It just happens to have happened the way it happened, right?
Sort of. But how would that make it invalid?
Oh, it wouldn't make it invalid. It would just mean that adhering to it is not a universal imperative.
Sure it does. You can't jump over your building.
Well, okay, but
Can you
but
hold on, Ken? Can you walk outside and jump over the building you're in?
But we're speaking about
Yes or no, Ken? Can you walk outside and jump over the building?
no,
Why not?
because I'm in my world, not yours. But the point is, we're not speaking of abstract ideas. We're speaking.
No. The reason is,
sorry,
Ken. The reason is, Ken, because we share the same reality, whether you like it or not. And in the real world, where physics matter, you jumping over that building is impossible. It is just as impossible as me jumping over the building. It's just as impossible as a person walking across a lake. It is just as impossible as someone being dead for 3 days and coming back to life. It is just as impossible as someone floating up into our atmosphere. These things are facts of reality in the world that we share, Ken. Whether you want to acknowledge you share that world with atheists or not doesn't matter. You do share this real world with atheists, and the things that you're proposing to believe in are impossible to happen within that reality.
But these are okay. This is a category error, okay? Because one thing is the physical reality of my inability to jump over a building. Sorry, I got to clear my throat for a second.
Sure.
The other issue is an organism, me, that exists by whatever you want to swap out the word accidentally, believing in an abstract concept and claiming that it's quote unquote true when it's not. That's a whole different category than a violation of the law of physics. This is just brain stuff, right? The biochemistry and my interpretation of it leading me to say something like that. I believe that a person rose from the dead. Well, you say that's impossible, and I'm saying it's not, or that it doesn't matter. And then you're referring to facts, which get us back to the issue of what is it that it's impossible? It's impossible compared to what you call reality. And what I'm saying is you have no universal imperative to adhere to reality when it comes to these abstract ideas.
Okay, so, oh God, okay, Ken, you're just abusing philosophical terms and muddying the waters, but it doesn't mean anything. It's just a word salad.
Nor does it matter on atheism.
No, that's not true.
Well, of course it is.
No. I can acknowledge
not on atheism.
I can acknowledge reality. I can acknowledge human limitations. When what you just said about it being a violation of physics is very important, because you're right. It is a violation of physics for you or I to jump over the building. But it is also a violation of the law of physics for dead people to come back to life. But you believe that happened, but you do not believe, you would not believe me if I told you I jumped over my building. So my question to you is, why do you believe that law of physics, a dead person coming back to life, is not only possible, but happened, but you don't believe that about someone jumping over a building?
Okay, so let's just understand, we're not talking about like someone who died and then you hit him with the defibrillator and they come right back. We're talking about a guy who's been dead 3 days. Okay, so that's what makes it different.
Dead.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Dead. Yeah. It will kill. So I would say that whatever, and this is just being extremely generic and simplistic and mundane, but okay, let's go there. Whatever caused the universe is categorizable as God. By definition, God exists. And so God would have the ability to, just like a guitar player can tune the guitar however he wants to, God can use these laws and manipulate them as well. So that would come with the ability to cause a person who's been dead 3 days to come back to life.
Okay. So would you
That's
say,
why it's called a miracle.
right. Okay. So would you say that is a subjective reality based on the whims of the God you believe in?
Oh, no. I would definitely say it's an objective reality.
How is it objective when it can change based on God's feeling?
Well, because by definition, God's nature would establish what is objective or not.
No,
And so
no.
this would be, the miracles would be part of the package deal. It wouldn't be...
Okay, hold on. If something is objective, is it always true?
Well, yeah, objective would refer to, like, say, ontology, for instance, something that is in and of itself, its nature or essence, instead of...
Okay, that's exactly what I was saying. So if God decided right now that jumping over buildings was a part of human anatomy, snaps his fingers and it's over, that's part of our reality, it was never objective in your worldview because it's subjective to God's changing his mind.
Well, I mean, I'm tempted to say that wouldn't happen, but then again, it would appear that people don't rise from the dead, and they did. But see,
I think that you come to this
the more you talk, the more I just...
the more you what?
I'm sorry. You just cut out slightly, so I was trying to wait for the...
No. The more I talk, the more you just what?
Yeah, the more I'm just hearing more hidden assumptions, and I'm as frustrated as you are. Because we sound to each other as if we want to ignore inconveniences to our worldviews and just get to discussing the other person's. I understand that. That's kind of why this has been a little bit of a conflict, is because we both feel the same way. So in a way, we're on the same boat.
Yeah, but only one of us hosts this podcast. And so when you come onto my show, I ask you questions. That's how it goes universally. So if you're going to come on a podcast and think that you're going to direct the conversation, that's an assumption that you probably need to reflect on. That you need to come on someone's show and be willing to answer their questions. And then once you do, say, "Hey, can I ask you some questions now?" And I will say, "Absolutely." But you don't start off the first question I ask you by avoiding it and challenging my worldview. You're just not going to get anywhere like that, Ken.
But again, that is just basic logic 101. Is if the conclusion's faulty, you don't have to bother with the conclusion if the premises are faulty. So I was just attacking the premises. That's just
but my premise, but the only premise you attacked was that reality. Why should we adhere to reality? Which is
on your worldview.
Yeah, which is one of the more outlandish questions or claims or positions I've ever heard in 11 years of doing this show. I've never had anyone just go, what's the big deal about reality? Why is that so good? Like not what's the big deal about reality. What's the big deal about reality on your worldview? Which views it as something that just happens to have happened. And it could have been very different. It just so happens that it happens to have happened this way. Right. So that would make it more so objective, that it just is, right? And we experience it as it is.
Right.
I'm agreeing. The objective truth that there are some physical limitations that we just have as humans is an objective truth that we can do nothing about to change. But in your worldview, these things that you're calling objective are actually subjective because God can change them at any moment. I don't have a worldview where an entity can change the facts of reality or can alter the laws of physics. I do not hold a belief that an entity that can change reality exists. So my worldview is the objective one. Your worldview is if God decided that 11 was 13 and that a mile was 3 inches long and that we could all jump over buildings and drink our own urine for health, that all becomes reality because your God said so. So my world becomes turned upside down because your God decided to change things. That is a subjective worldview, Ken. That is not objectivity.
Yeah, and that would probably be something like divine command theory, and I'll say something about that in just a moment. But I'm agreeing with you that on your worldview, reality is objective. Yeah, no, that's not the issue. Of course, it's objective. But the follow-up to that was that our ability to discern reality is also something that just so happens to have happened the way it happened, right?
To the best of our knowledge, we can only use the tools we have to observe reality in order to test reality.
Right. So
Okay.
then we have two things thus far that are fundamental that just so happens to have happened. And then the other step was that, well, then there's no universal imperative to adhere to reality, such that, for example, since I'm a living organism that just so happens to have happened, then there's no universal imperative for me to believe in certain things because they reflect reality. It's just literally irrelevant.
Okay.
So I can say it's objectively true, and then I can say, but I don't care, and it doesn't matter.
Here's a little thought experiment. If I take a trash can and put it 15 feet away from me in my living room, and I ball up 30,000 pieces of paper, and I just take one of those pieces of paper and throw it toward the trash can, and I take another one and I throw it toward the trash can, and I take another and I throw it to the trash can. If on try number 13,756, are you going to say that paper just so happened to have happened to fall into the trash can? Is it going to be shocking to you that I made one of them in the trash can?
Well, I'm afraid that doesn't go deep enough because
I asked you, Ken, I just asked a question. Don't analyze my question. Answer it. Is it gonna surprise you that I made one? It's a yes or no question. I have a follow-up.
Would it surprise me that you made one? No.
Okay. It wouldn't surprise me either. We don't know how many universes started and failed. We don't know how many planets started and failed. We don't know how many times Earth has attempted to do this and failed. We have a good idea. We don't know how many galaxies began and ended for billions of years. We just don't know. This could have been the 13,556th throw toward the trash can. So when you call it accidental or just so happened to have happened, it's as though it only had one shot and everything worked out perfectly. And nothing could be further from the truth.
I think I'm saying the exact opposite, actually. I'm saying that since it just so happens to have happened, I said earlier, it could have been completely different. We could have ended up in a universe where reality is completely different than the reality we're experiencing in this universe.
Sure.
That's the whole point of saying that it just happens to have happened.
But we didn't. And you and I can both observe that reality.
Yes, exactly.
Right now.
Right.
We can observe that reality.
Our ability
All right.
Our ability to observe it is also something that just happens to have happened. We could have lived in a universe where we were not able to observe reality.
Yep, but we don't. We don't live in that universe.
Yes.
Unfortunately, you and I exist in a universe where this conversation is happening.
Right.
So this is happening right now to both of us. And we happen to share a reality where we can't jump over the building. We share a reality where dead people stay dead. But you believe that reality was suspended at some point and the laws of physics were tossed aside because a dead person came back to life, and not only came back to life, but floated up into our atmosphere and ended up in a mystical place called heaven that we also do not know the location of. Yeah. Why do you believe that?
Because with God, all things are possible. So the one who created the reality in which we live has a way to have things happen the way he intends them to happen.
Okay.
By definition.
And why do you believe in that God?
Well, again, there's so many ways we could go with this, but that it's just difficult to know which rabbit hole to go down. But like I said, so when I'm seeing that it's logical and historical and backed by prophecy, and there's just so much behind what we're told, not to mention the fact that there's regularity in nature and that the universe is based on pre-existing information and the only known source of information is mind, that there's just so many directions I could go in, although I just still don't understand why that matters. But I would say that on my worldview, it's because it's a consistent from the earliest prophetic days until Jesus actually accomplished that feat, that this is what was expected to happen, and it happened.
So why do you believe the Bible is a credible source of information?
Okay, I'm going to be a brat and say that it doesn't matter on your worldview, but I'll answer on mine. As I stated at the outset, it's the issue of it being the most well-attested text of antiquity, containing accurate history, verified by archaeology and documentation, and the linguistic issues and the prophetic issues, and that it touches upon some fundamental things about humanity that any cogent worldview really has to answer, things such as humanity's virtually unique, it seems, ability for beauty and love and grace, and also horror and terror and brutality.
Oh my God, there's so much to unpack there.
I know, that's why I'm saying it's really difficult to just
well,
give
it's
like
definitely not. It's definitely not the most well documented book when you're talking about the Bible.
But it doesn't matter on your worldview.
Ken, why would that not matter in my worldview? That the Bible is not trustworthy.
Good. Okay, that's good question. Okay, so I'm going to just assume, and correct me if I'm wrong, that on your worldview, I'm an evolved ape that just happens to have come to life somehow, and I'm living in a certain universe with a certain reality that just so happens to have happened, so that when it comes to these abstract ideas, such as what I choose to believe, when what I choose to believe are the byproducts of random biochemical reactions within my haphazardly evolved brain, then I'm going to use the term accident again, I hope you don't mind, such an accidentally existing ape, it's really irrelevant what they believe, especially if you're coming from a point of view of atheistic evolution, where it would be a Darwinian survival mechanism that an ape believes in something that isn't true just because it assists them to survive.
All right, Ken, I'm going to need you to stop, because you're saying so many things that are just completely false, and I just can't.
You to correct me if I was wrong.
Yeah, okay, good. I can't just sit here through this. First of all, God, I should have been writing all this down. I just can't. I mean, oh my God, man. Ugh. So.
I think it's like I mentioned a while back, is when you say to me jump, I'm asking why, Ken, and I'm still waiting for an answer.
Ken, you're using what's called a fire hose technique. I don't know if you're familiar, if you've done professional debates before, something called a gish gallop, where you just list so many things in a row that it would take me so long to unpack each thing you said. For you to say that it just doesn't matter on the atheist worldview, that doesn't mean anything to me, that you think it doesn't matter, because reality always matters. Truth always matters. So I don't know what you mean when you say that.
To you.
But who are you to say what matters to me?
Exactly. Who were any of us on your worldview? We're just a bunch of accidentally existing apes. So what?
We share the same reality, Ken.
And the same reality that just happens to have happened.
It doesn't matter. You can your behaviors.
That's what I'm saying.
Your behaviors affect our lives.
And that's a hidden assumption as well, that it shouldn't, or
No,
that you
it's
have
not a hidden
some
assumption,
sort of
Ken.
end goal
It's
that
not
I'm
a hidden assumption. It's a
interfering with.
fact of reality that your behaviors affect the rest of us. I don't need a Bible to tell me that 60 people in a classroom not wearing a mask can cause more people to be infected. I don't need a religion to tell me that. The facts of reality show us that other behaviors can affect your life. Secondhand smoke is a real thing. You smoking around me at work every day can cause me to get lung cancer. That's a fact of reality. You're going to tell me that cancer doesn't matter and my quality of life doesn't matter and me being able to breathe air doesn't matter because it just so happened to have happened?
No, well, but all those things you just listed are based on hidden assumptions about human value and worth and why an accidentally existing ape shouldn't affect other accidentally existing apes in that way.
Oh my God, this is a pointless conversation.
Because you don't want to go meta level.
This is an absolutely pointless conversation. Anything that I say to you, you just say it doesn't matter, and you just
on your worldview.
That is
okay. Let me just make a statement. One reason that I started interacting online was actually exactly because I was listening to a lot of atheists, and I just couldn't believe the historically invalid statements they were making, the illogical statements, the ignorance of the Bible's contents and context and concepts. And so I started to respond. And one thing I've noticed is that atheists are not consistent. And the frustrating part is that consistency is not a universal imperative on their worldview, so they can only ever be consistently inconsistent.
Ken, hold on. Ken, you believe that you have some sort of objective worldview, but then you'll turn right around and acknowledge that God can change that objective worldview in any moment, which is by definition subjective. And you have the nerve to call atheists inconsistent?
But then you're proving my point. If you are correct, it doesn't matter that an ape is inconsistent. It's irrelevant.
Sure it does.
That's the point.
Sure it matters.
But it matters to you subjectively. I understand that. It doesn't matter on your worldview, however.
It matters in the real world because your behaviors affect the rest of us. So if an atheist, this evolved ape, walks outside and is totally nude and starts screaming and knocking over trash cans, that affects us all in the neighborhood, right? We are all affected negatively by that evolved ape's reactions. We are all affected negatively. We don't want to see that. We don't want to hear that. We collectively as a community say, let's either find him some help, let's put clothes on him, let's take him to jail, let's stop him from damaging property. It all matters because all of our quality of life is affected negatively. And at the end of every one of my sentences, you can just go, doesn't matter in your worldview. And that is just nonsensical. It leads to absurdity. In the reality that we share,
it does lead to absurdity. That's my point exactly.
What I said leads to absurdity is you're tagging my sentences with it doesn't matter in your worldview, because it does matter. It matters that people are being affected negatively in that moment.
But that's a hidden assumption. So why does it matter that people are being affected negatively?
What do you mean hidden assumption? You have this keyword that you use, Ken, called hidden assumption, which you just throw that out and it doesn't mean anything. How it's not a hidden assumption when I tell you it's a fact of reality that people are impacted negatively by someone else's behavior. That's not hidden and nothing's being assumed. It's a fact of reality that's being observed.
I agree. That's not a hidden assumption. The hidden assumption is why that's an issue. See, you don't want to go deeper than the manner into which you have become accustomed.
Ken, trust me, you're not too deep for me and my listeners. Trust me. You're bouncing around this conversation on reality. The reason it matters is because quality of life matters within the realm of reality. It is bad for a human being to exist with high levels of negativity. It is negative for the biology, for the human, to be held captive in abasement. And you're just going to say, on my reality, I have no basis to say that's negative, right? That's what leads to absurdity.
Right, because that's a conclusion that you jumped to. You just asserted that. You're not arguing your way to it. You're just
no. I observed it. I didn't just assert it. That is a fact of reality that is observable. If I were to take a lighter, Ken, and burn your skin, there's no debate as to whether or not that is harmful for your body. It is a fact of reality that it is harmful to your body. We can measure it. We can falsify it. We can put your brain under an MRI as you're burned. All of this can be scientifically proven to be a fact of reality according to the laws of physics.
Correct.
You can't do that with your claims of Jesus dying and coming back to life and running across a lake and floating up into heaven. These are things that are impossible according to those same things that you just acknowledged are objective truths.
Okay, so I was saying, agreeing all along on the fact that you were stating a conclusion, but the argument would be the reason that it is absolutely a universal imperative that it's wrong to do that to people is what? And then you would have to jump to a conclusion based on a hidden assumption again.
No. I just said nope. It's not a hidden assumption. It's an observation of reality that it is harmful. The word harmful was in there, and you agreed to it.
That's not the issue. That it is harmful is the hidden assumption is that we are to avoid harming. And what we call harm.
So you think atheists have no reason not to harm?
Oh, I think that they do, because the actual reality in which they live is one where God created them in his own image and imbued them with his ethos.
Oh, no, because I would never condone slavery or tell people to kill homosexual people. So I would never be created in God's image. I have way more morality than to be in God's image. My image is that of an evolved ape who learned how to live in a society where caring for other creatures like me meant I was safer. So it may have started from something selfish, but it ended up becoming altruistic, even from a genetic perspective, because helping my neighbors be happy and healthy is better for me as an individual ape. So we evolved compassion, we evolved working together, we evolved living in a society and treating each other with respect and love and kindness, because we all do better when others do better. There's an atheistic, humanistic, evolutionarily biological explanation for all of that. And that matters. It matters from a humanistic worldview. It matters from a realistic worldview that we evolved kindness and love and respect for other people.
I understand that what you're presenting is a pragmatic point of view. I mean, I get that. I'm just saying that it's a jump to a conclusion. So, for example, you said all that and said it's better for me. I mean, I understand that it's purely subjective to you, but my ethos, my ethics tell me I should do it even if it's not better for me, even if it's better for other people, and it never comes around to bettering me, because I should be that much of a graceful servant.
Okay.
See, when you say we do better, you're presupposing the concept of better, and the hidden assumption is that there is such a thing as better because there's some sort of objective goal, and that we define what's better and seek for what's better.
Well, yeah,
what I'm
from an
saying is
evolutionary,
those are just options. They're just personal preferences.
From an evolutionary perspective, it's human flourishing, not flourishing of the individual alone. And that's my concern with Christian ethics or Messianic Jewish ethics, however you want to put it. The ethics of the Bible are not in favor of everyone doing well. It's not. That's what you say as a modern day Christian believer. A lot of Christians say that, but it's not the way you actually behave in most cases. And if you look back throughout the Bible, Ken, you'll see that there were multiple times where people were just slaughtered. The Amalekites were killed. God was telling Saul in 1 Samuel 15:3 to wipe out the Amalekites and kill the nursing infants. the Midianites were almost completely destroyed. And the slaves. It was okay to rule ruthlessly over certain slaves, but it says do not rule ruthlessly over your own people, but you can capture people from the cities around you and make them your slaves and make them your property. And in fact, in Leviticus, it says you can pass them down to your children because these people are your property. Had every opportunity in the world to say, thou shalt not own human beings, didn't do it. I don't see Christianity or Judaism either as being superior from a moral perspective. It is far more superior to take the morality of a humanist and say, I care about you from an evolutionary perspective.
Exactly.
And I love you. Yeah, I care. Yeah, the word I was in front of care about you from an evolutionary perspective. And so I do not think you should be enslaved. I do not think you should be falling headlong in a field with your bowels falling out of you. I do not think you should be treated like Job. I do not think you should be tossed into an eternal fire pit of hell. I do not think anyone should be treated that way because I love humanity as a whole. Christian ethics are horrific, Ken.
Do you see what I mean about atheist only ever being consistently inconsistent? You just finished explaining to me that human morality evolved to the point that now we're concerned with human flourishing. But now you're artificially going back in time and using today's morality to condemn the past. You can't do that on your worldview. All you can say is, oh gosh, it's too bad from our perspective today with the zeitgeist and everything. We can look back and say that wasn't very nice, but we can't apply
what you should do, Ken?
Back in time. That's artificial.
Ken, what you really should do is understand Rappaport's rules. You should really read up on Rappaport's rules for discussion and debate, because it's a basic example of Rappaport's rule to state someone's belief or worldview or viewpoint or position in a way that they agree with it before you're prepared to argue against it. So instead of asking me a question or attempting to state my worldview in a way that I would agree with it, you tell me what my worldview is and then proceed to argue against it.
Actually, if you paid attention to what I just said, I referred to what you just finished explaining to us.
Yeah, so what did you just say?
It's exactly what I just did.
No, you didn't. So what did you just say? Say what you just said.
So you had explained to us that we came from these humble beginnings and then we evolved the morality that we have today so that now we're concerned with human flourishing.
Yep.
Right? Then you traveled back in time and you're applying today's evolved morality to the past. And I'm saying that's inconsistent. You can't do that.
Right. That's the problem. That's your problem right there. Ken, that's your problem right there. You say you can't do that on your worldview. How do you know? You haven't asked me, because I can tell you exactly how that happens. Because chaining someone up and keeping them as your property and beating them has always been wrong. It has always been harmful.
Okay, very well. Okay, let's stop there a second. How so on your worldview?
Because it causes harm to the human.
And what is the problem with causing harm to a human on your worldview?
It is not conducive to human flourishing.
And why are you setting human flourishing as some sort of ultimate standard?
I just explained it, that's what we evolved to care about.
Sorry, you're breaking up a lot.
That's what we evolved to care about, and that's what I just explained. I went through the whole process that we evolved to love one another and care about human flourishing. So for you, Ken, you can't talk. Ken, you can't talk while I'm talking. It's not random. I'm talking about the evolutionary process of developing compassion. We began loving one another and helping human flourishing. So for you to then say, you can't judge those past biblical slavery treatments according to today's morality on your worldview, you are categorically false. You do not understand my worldview enough to make that statement, and you should do better to ask questions about my worldview rather than to tell me what I believe and then argue against a straw man version of me. Because what I actually believe is that it is harmful to human beings to enslave them and beat them no matter what. But you know what you believe? And I'm going to do what you did now. You believe that if
Even though I didn't do it.
that if God says it's okay to enslave that person, then it's morally good to enslave a human being. If God says it's okay to beat that slave, then it's morally good to do it because God said it. And now you pretend to have this objective moral truth when really, just like with reality and physics and everything else in your life, you're subjected to God's whims. If God decides tomorrow that slavery is good, you're now in favor of slavery because God said so and now it's good. I would say that God is wrong for saying slavery is good because it hurts human beings.
Okay, well, you just stated like a jam-packed series of absolute misconceptions. So let's get back to the issue of that. What you're telling me is that because an unguided, uncreated, undesigned, just so happens to have happened process led you to the result that, hey, we should believe in human flourishing, then that's incumbent upon me? You're demanding that I adhere to it as a universal imperative? What makes you a better ape than I am just because you accidented that thought and I don't?
I didn't demand that you adhere to that imperative.
Oh, well, there you goes your entire moral concept then. It just crashed down right there.
No, it didn't. That's absurd. I didn't demand that you believe what I believe. I can just tell you, if you go against that, it's not going to be a very good time for you. You are going to have that negative, those negative things happen to you, and it's not going to be good for your personal flourishing. And listen, this isn't just human beings. You do know that in chimpanzee troops, if chimps start to steal bananas and start fights, they get thrown out of the troop. You don't get to experience the safety and love and solitude and camaraderie and mating, access to sexual partners. You don't get to experience that if you're not going to play by the rules. If you're going to introduce negativity to our chimpanzee troop, you get thrown out. I can only imagine a chimp that got thrown out going, based on what reality do you say taking bananas is wrong? Come on.
Yeah, I already noted that. I understand you're making a pragmatic statement. I'm not disputing that. I'm just saying that you're making a pragmatic statement as a conclusion. And the only premises you're offering me is that it just so happens to have happened this way, so we should go with it.
It's not that it just so happened to have happened, so we should go with it. That is not my position. I explained in very good detail as to how we evolved compassion and why it matters. I didn't say it just so happened to have happened, so let's go with it. That is such a straw man of my position.
But it's not, because the words you just finished stating affirm that when you're referring to evolution, you're referring to a process that is not guided, that has no end result in mind. It's just
why does it have to be?
Why does it have to be? There's no rhyme or reason.
Ken, why does it have to be guided in order to mean something to you?
It means something to me?
Why does it have to be guided in order to mean something to you?
Okay, so it doesn't, because to mean something to me, that would be purely subjective. So sure, I can decide that anything is meaningful to me. That's not really the issue, though, because the next person could say, well, that's not meaningful to me. I have a different meaningful thing.
So something can only mean something to everyone if it's guided by a thinking mind?
Right, something that establishes an absolute and a goal-driven end result.
So what about? But yeah. you do realize that to atheists, your God means nothing.
Well, I would say that's debatable, and also it gets us back to the issue of that what you appear to be doing is holding me to standards of logic, and that you haven't established yet. They're just assertions at this point, hidden assumptions. They've been all along.
Yeah. You call hidden assumptions, I call observations of reality. So that's fine.
Exactly. A reality that on your worldview just so happens to have happened this way. There's no
Okay,
universal
Ken,
authority
let's
to
go ahead
adhere
and
to
move into the Bible being part of education. This is the
Yes.
last thing we're going to get into because I don't have the energy for anything else. I'm going to take a quick break, and I want to talk to you about, because I saw that you gave a talk. I didn't see the talk. I want to know what you mean that, and your post actually said the Bible should be part of education. Hear that, atheists? So I
That's
want to
right.
find out what that is at truefreethinker.com.
Quote, I must admit that even I am a little taken aback at the biblical ignorance commonly displayed by people educated in more recent decades. The King James Bible of 1611, the Authorized Version, includes passages of outstanding literary merit in its own right. For example, the Song of Songs and the sublime Ecclesiastes, which I am told is pretty good in the original Hebrew too. But the main reason the English Bible needs to be part of our education is that it is a major source book for literary culture. Here's a quick list of biblical or Bible-inspired phrases and sentences that occur commonly in literary or conversational English, from great poetry to hackneyed cliche, from proverb to gossip. As old as Methuselah, a mess of pottage, sold his birthright, Jacob's ladder, coat of many colors. Okay, this person actually has a whole page of just one-liners, like bullet pointed, that would recognizably from the Bible and are just common, right? Common in English. I'll spare you reading all of them. Every one of these idioms, phrases, and cliches comes directly from the King James Authorized Version of the Bible. Surely ignorance of the Bible is bound to impoverish one's appreciation of English literature, and not just solemn and serious literature. The following rhyme by Lord Justice Bowen is ingeniously witty. The rain it raineth on the just, and also on the unjust fella, but chiefly on the just, because the unjust hath the just's umbrella. Ba-da-boom. But the enjoyment is muffled if you can't take the allusion to Matthew 5:45. For he maketh his sun to rise on the evil and the good, and sendeth rain on the just and the unjust. And the fine point of Eliza Doolittle's fantasy in My Fair Lady would escape anyone ignorant of John the Baptist's end. Thanks a lot, King, say I, with a manner well bred. But all I want is Henry Higgins' head. P.J. Hothouse is, for my money, the greatest writer of light comedy in English, and I bet fully half my list of biblical phrases will be found as allusions within his pages. What is true of comic writing in English is more obviously true of serious literature. Nazib Shaheen tally of more than 1,300 biblical references in Shakespeare's work is widely cited and very believable. The Bible Literacy Report provides many examples and cites overwhelming agreement by teachers of English literature that Bible literacy is essential to a full appreciation of the subject. Now, this was written by Richard Dawkins. Anybody know who that is? He's pretty much the most well-known atheist today. Absolutely hates God, absolutely hates the Bible, absolutely hates Christianity. So, when your enemy is urging you to read the Bible, you might want to do it. And of course, since he's our enemy, we should love him. And I'll grant you, he has ulterior motives for saying this. But, what more encouragement do you need than from a militant atheist to say things like the Bible needs to be part of our education, and we shouldn't be ignorant of it. And giving you so many examples about how you're going to run into it everywhere in literature, and even any kind of story or movies. Like in the movie Secondhand Lions, there's a scene where the protagonist is confronting his nemesis, and he says, "This is the second time I could have killed you, but I'm not going to do it." And I thought, oh, that's David and Saul right there. That's what that is. You can pick up on it absolutely everywhere if you understand, if you know your Bible, and then you're forming your worldview on it, right? And he ends this particular statement, Richard Dawkins does, by writing, "Let me not labor the point. I have probably said enough to convince you, at least my older readers, that an atheistic worldview provides no justification for cutting the Bible and other sacred books out of our education."